So I'm the stage manager as well. So I'd love our 7 speakers to come up to the front, grab a seat. I just want to say, and I suspect everyone in this room feels the same way, wow. Yeah. You know, I always think if, I used to teach marketing, when you launch a product and you have this kind of feeling, you got to keep going. And I really mean that. I'd just be interested, let me ask just a couple of questions and I'll open it up to the whole group. I was interesting for you, what was it like? What kind of themes emerged for you in listening to each other? Are there some common themes that would, if we did a factor analysis on this?
I think for Kevin and me, both like being very intuitive, when me approach a painting and him approach the woodworking, not having that final outcome, and just, I know Kevin said letting the wood talk to him. A lot of times I let the painting talk to me and I listen to the painting. So I thought that was very common between us.
Yeah. Other thoughts?
I think I thought that the bakery story was not going to turn out the way it did. And the same way with the last story.
Maybe it's not over.
I think the surprises. You know,
there were surprises.
The twists in the stories, yeah.
What does that suggest about our lives?
Certainly unpredictable.
Unpredictable.
I think you got to just, you know, because like for me, it's everything. This has been throughout my entire life. Woodworking has come and gone, and that was kind of like the same story with sailing. It's like it'll find its time, and you know, often it's a person, and that's the other thing that seemed to have come across in many of the stories, that somebody will come into your life and they'll be part of making the story work, and you just have to be open to that. It's a little bit like I find with the wood. It's like you got to be open to what it's telling you and listen, and you'll see it.
Let me ask a Booth-related question or a GSB-related question. Is our curriculum in any way helping people to stay open? Or does it push toward depth and specialization? Or are they inherently in conflict?
I think where you are in life, when you are at Booth, makes a big difference. When I was there, I was in my 20s. All I thought about really was, you know, finishing homework so I could go to the bars. And I think as you get older, you reassess what's important in your life, and you realize you may not live to be 55. So if you can live your life every day or a part of it as if you are retired, then you're living your life the way I would want to live my life. I'm not going to wait necessarily to retirement. So I try to live retired a little bit every day.
I think what would be helpful to students at Booth right now is for if we had a system by which we could get the feedback on what kind of classes to take. I mean, we have the course evaluations, right? But that's done by people who just took the course, don't have much of a perspective on how much the course stays with you over the course of your life, and which courses maybe 5 or 10 years later you find as the most valuable. So you get a lot of us going through Booth saying, I want to do consulting, and these courses right here are the consulting courses, and I'm going to do those. And that's it. And then a year or 2 later of consulting, you're not doing consulting anymore, but you spent a whole big chunk of your Booth education trying to be, you know, a consultant or banker, or, you know, a lot of, I go to certain classes, and this is the investment management class, and everybody there are the mutual fund and hedge fund people, and you go to the, you know, certain classes, and everybody in there are the banking people.
Yeah. But even those people may have some kind of passions like you have outside of it that they don't bring into their lives. Kevin?
I'd like to pick up on what Davis just said, which is, it also goes the other way, that, I have people come back years later and they'll say, this course I didn't really think was going to help me over here, and it turned out it did.
Right.
And so you want to stow all those things away, those little gems of things you hear, just stow them away, and then keep thinking back which one of those you can use years later. And it really pays. It's like that pile of wood in the shop. You go and you go, oh, I got a piece in there. I remember I loved that piece and I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And 10 years later, there it is. It comes out and it shows up. And I think I love his idea of going out and interviewing people years later about what courses they found were really valuable. My guess is it changes from what they say the day after.
And it's probably not just courses, it's life experiences. As you say, you meet somebody and you feel a connection, and who knows where that may evolve at some point. Let me ask this question. What was it like for the seven of you to share this side of you? It's an unusual evening. What was it like?
So I do a lot of public speaking for my job, and this was much more difficult. You feel exposed much more than if you're talking about a banking product or a treasury solution. So you do feel vulnerable. I did anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I actually never talk about CrossFit with people outside of CrossFit because there's such a stereotype.
Yeah.
And so when I was thinking about the prompt, what in my life that I spend a lot of time and energy on, that I'm really passionate about, that I actually do apply to the rest of my world, I was terrified. But the truth was, it is today in my life right now, this class/phenomenon/sport that everyone loves to make fun of. And for this, it was just time to embrace that, because sometimes we might think our passions are silly or very specific to us, and you just have to own that sometimes.
What do you see as the value of owning it and sharing it?
I think we just don't know sometimes I just don't know what I'm going to learn about someone that's going to spark something that I can connect to and apply in my life. Mm-hmm. And so for me, bringing this up, one is I think a lot of women don't believe in strength training or barbell, and so I'm just an advocate of that because CrossFit. But two is because I think when you hear other people's passions, there are nuggets that we find that we then take back with us. And that's super valuable to me, to be able to hear about everyone else's things.
Sheila shared a story, we were talking earlier about her two lives. And how you see some sort of cost of sharing your artistic passions and obviously talent with your finance colleagues.
Yeah, so I mean, sharing tonight, I absolutely loved it. I love talking about my paintings, and especially the opportunity to talk at a booth event in front of this type of audience where you don't normally get that opportunity was super fun. But then at work, I do try to keep it very separate, because I think at work people are very risk averse. They want a finance mentality, and I don't want them knowing that I do all this painting on the side. So I try to keep it very separate. So I try to keep the two separate, but I love the integration between like the business side and the art. So speaking at an event like this is really fun for me.
Do your colleagues know that you're featured?
So I'll tell one or two people at work, but for the most part, I keep it very separate. So that's why my LinkedIn profile is not updated to artist yet.
When I was listening to you talk, I had this one thought that, at this sort of big corporation, this sort of a workplace, I can imagine them saying, look at our amazing, colleague doing awesome things on the outside, such a great artist. We have the best people, check this out. But then I had this other thought where I was like, maybe they only, you worry that they only do that when you reach something so, tangibly amazing to, bring out and say, look at this, look at our, colleague here. And if you were not there yet, then you worry, well, are they just going to say, come on now, stop wasting your time on that side hobby you've got, you should be focusing on this DCF we're doing here. So I don't, I don't know if that's just something that I would be paranoid about, rightfully or, wrongfully, but that was something.
I often tell the story that, some of you have heard this, that I have a great deal of interest in music, and music is a terribly important part of my life, and I kept it out of the classroom, because Chicago, you don't use a musical metaphor, you have to use economics. And I remember eventually I said, wait a minute, this is my classroom. And so I kept using some musical metaphors. And first, number one, I brought a whole new energy into my connection with students, because I was speaking, as all of you were speaking, from something that's really an important part of you. And I thought, the lights would go off and I'd be, ejected from the institution. And I remember a funny story. There was a woman from India that came down, and I used a musical metaphor about theme and variations as a musical form, and talking about strategy in that sense. And she came down after the class. She said, Professor Davis, thank you so much for that. All of the other faculty use these sports metaphors, using American football. And in India, I don't even know, we don't know what that is. Quarterback, halfback, or whatever. That was great, I understood it. So interestingly, sometimes when we bring out these parts of ourselves, rather than thinking, I'm going to get in trouble, or it's not going to work, or I'm going to be diminished in some ways, it may have quite the opposite. How about any questions from, yes?
Following along from what you said, there's something about having this passion. Is that something that you can, having the passion, take it to other things and be passionate about other things? You find that helps?
Does it generalize?
Yeah. Generalize. Can you
Yeah.
generalize, you love sailing, right? You have that passion for it. Can you step in and bring that passion to something else?
I think, I don't know that I do it consciously, I think, but I do, if there's some characteristics of the activity or the client or the piece of business, I find it easy to get excited. I don't find that I have to, if there's something unique about it, or there's something that's appealing about it, in the same way that there is in sailing, I do love that. And there are certain characteristics, I think, that carry through. The competitive nature of sailing, certainly carries through into business, and that makes that entertaining as well.
I would say, I feel like once you've done something, sailing, farm dance, whatever, you had this awesome slide where you really kind of wrote down, if you're going to do this, get a network, seek expert help. These are sort of the things where I think when you've done a passion, you kind of have experienced this pattern of what would you do if you were to take up another passion, whether that's certain kinds of work or a whole new hobby. And then you kind of realize, okay, I'm starting a hobby and I am just terrible. And I really connect with, you have a new, larger boat and you ended up at the back of the fleet at first. And, I think everybody who's gone through these kinds of things, any kind of a passion, you get used to just being the suckiest person you have ever seen in your life. In ballroom dance, man, a beginning level guy you feel like maybe the lowest form of life on earth or something. A beginner girl, like a really advanced guy can take her and lead her to do some, pretty cool moves. And but when you're a beginner guy, man, you're just worthless. There's just only one way to do it, which is to climb your way up. And then, then you realized, okay, this whole sucking thing is pretty bad, but it's a temporary stage, and it's kind of correlated with the times when maybe you hope that you're learning the fastest.
It's it's a good antidote for hubris, right? I mean, I'm thinking, Rafi, your real excitement about storytelling and all the work you've done on that strikes me as generalizable to what you're doing at Facebook in some sense.
Yeah, there's definitely elements that like are directly useful if you're giving a presentation and kind of thinking about how to connect with the audience. Though I think I personally resist a little bit the term passion, because I feel like there's a kind of a set of acceptable passions in the workplace. Like people put on their LinkedIn profile that they're competitive mountain climbers and stuff like that. And there's also this sort of teleological idea of like, well, you know, you try something and you're terrible at first, but you'll get good at it. But like, I don't know, there's things that I've done for years and I'm still terrible at it, but it still matters. Like I still enjoy it, and I think it's worthwhile sharing that stuff that's personal, even if I'm not good at it. And like the word passion kind of, I mean, I think it's an appropriate word. I just think that the connotations are like something that is idiosyncratic, but you know, you're really good at. And I don't know, I like the things that you're also not so good at, or you know, they're just you.
I like what you said about kind of passion maybe isn't the right word. I went to 2 graduations. Both my kids graduated, one from 12th grade and one from 8th grade. And they talk about follow your passion. Well, not many high school graduates or 8th graders know that they have any passions. So I say follow your curiosities. See where it takes you. Maybe you'll be in your 40s when you realize you have a passion, or maybe you'll be in your 30s or your 60s, but just follow those curiosities.
I would tell people it's okay not to have a passion as well, to be one of those people who does a bunch of different things. I mean, if it happens to be that you're the person who really focuses on that one activity, that's great. But a lot of other people get the same satisfaction by doing 5 different things. And, you know, there's no crime in that, you know. I mean, again, and maybe one of those will turn into a passion. That's the other thing. They don't have to be a passion to begin with. So I wouldn't tell people that they always, you know, you have to be focused on one thing. It may turn out that way, but don't go in with that plan. That's the way I think I would say.
There's a question back here. Yes.
Thanks so much for speaking. My name is Shruti Balakrishnan, and I'm a 2017 graduate. And I have a very practical question for you. So it feels like, you know, I graduated last Saturday, and I think this brief period before a lot of life is just going to hit me in the face. So in terms of jobs, career, kids, everything, and it seems from what I've heard from alumni like yourselves, it just having to make those trade-offs just something that keeps happening. So very tactically, how do you make time for your hobbies, and what are the trade-offs that you think about?
It may be bad for you, but I mean, I find I get up very early and go to bed very late and try to make sure I get something done every day. I mean, that's really it. If I'm passionate about getting something done on a daily basis. And that, for me, that's worked. And that's been true my entire life. And, you know, to me, it's the hard work is a big part of everything. But it becomes fun. Work becomes fun after a while. So I hate to say it. To me, that's always been the answer.
You know, being a tenured member of the faculty, I've always said I've never worked a day in my life because I love what I do, and so it never has seemed like work. And I work hard too. I get up at 5 every morning, and I don't know why, but get
You
ready.
can't wait for the day, right?
Yeah, that's true.
You don't. You feel if you get up later, you feel like you're wasting the day.
Yeah. What time do you get up?
4. I get up at 3:30. I'm at work by 4. So.
Yeah. Well, it strikes me
I don't
on.
sleep much. That's a big advantage.
It strikes me on that note. We better adjourn to the other room so you can go to bed. Thank you again, all of you. We are going to have another event with a different group of creative people that are doing their views, and we're going to have the next event will be at the Gleacher Center on October 16th, and we will send out an email asking people if they're interested in attending, and secondly, if they would like, having seen this, to share one of their passions, or whatever word we use, their deep curiosity or hard work with everyone. So I want to thank all of you for coming and being a part of this very first event. In my life, the things that have given me the most fun are starting something new and having the first event. And there will never be an event for me that was as special as this one, given that we're all doing this for the first time. So thank you all for being a part of it. Thank you.